What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ramblin' Rams podcast. I'm James Torrillo here with my co host, Jordan Bare. Jordan, the NFL free agency season is here. The Rams have made some big moves that we have to go over. How do we feel?
I'm feeling really good. I mentioned in Instagram video the other day, I'm feeling really good about the start of free agency. It's just getting going, but I like where the Rams' heads at, and I'm expecting some big moves coming up soon for sure.
Speaking of big moves, we got to dive right into it, right? Trent McDuffie is a Los Angeles Ram. Welcome to LA, Trent. We're very happy to have you. I forget who tweeted this out. I apologize for not being able to give the correct analyst credit, but they said the Rams going into this offseason had a cornerback problem. They've solved that cornerback problem with Trent McDuffie, and now Jalen Watson, two former Chiefs, are now both Rams. So this is perfect, but it leaves so many things wide open. Does that mean Akello Witherspoon's gone? Does that mean Forbes gets moved, or Forbes is our number 3 or number 4 corner? Uh, Now we don't have pick number 29. Who are we going to take at pick 13 now? Are we still going to take a corner? There's so many things that we can talk about in this episode. And today is one of the biggest days of the offseason, which is awesome. It's beautiful out here in New Jersey. I don't know how it is in Texas for you, but the
It's
whole
good weather today for sure. We're
good.
having a good day.
I bring that up because like the whole vibe of the day is like great. It's like nice out, but like we get to talk football because stuff is actually going on, unlike the last few weeks where you know it's just after the Super Bowl. It's just been all right. Well, that's that's really it. Let's wait till free agency, and now it's here, so we don't have to wait anymore
Right.
because it's here. There's so many big names that we're going to eventually get into throughout this episode, but I do want to dive more into the Trent McDuffie trade and signing. He's now the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. He's extended for the next 4 years by our Los Angeles Rams. Give me your thoughts. I know we haven't talked too much about it, so what are your thoughts on Trent McDuffie being a Ram?
Yeah, super excited. I believe we both had Trent McDuffie ranked in our top 10 list last week, right?
Yeah, I think I had him top five. I had him like number three or something.
Wow. Okay. So there you go. I had him ranked 10th, and I didn't know we were getting Trent McDuffie before this, and I've done more research, of course, on the player since we've gotten him, and he's a two-time All-Pro, one-time first-team All-Pro, one-time second-team All-Pro. Ironically, never a Pro Bowler, but I highly expect that to change this upcoming season. I want to almost put a guarantee on it that Trent McDuffie will be a Pro Bowler. And it's interesting because we have Quentin Lake who plays that Jalen Ramsey role, aka the star position on this
Mhm.
defense. We run a very similar defense to what we did in 2021 when we won the Super Bowl with Jalen Ramsey. And Quentin Lake has primarily played that role, but Trent McDuffie, if you look at it, I don't want to say he's as good as Jalen Ramsey because I believe Jalen Ramsey to be a future Hall of Famer
For
and,
sure.
in my opinion, one of the best cornerbacks of all time.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
think that's that hot of a take. He was amazing. At his peak, he was locked down. He was a huge momentum shifter in our defense and us winning the Super Bowl. We don't win that Super Bowl without Jalen Ramsey on this team. And I think Trent McDuffie's a very similar player and skill set and how he plays. He's a perfect fit for that star role because he is one of the best tacklers in the league. He's great at rushing the passer. He's not afraid to cover anyone. He's not afraid of anyone. And it's just a really good fit for how Chris Shula likes to play defense. And we'll get into it more, but like we mentioned, we got his boy Watson, and I saw McDuffie tweeting out like emojis. He's loving the Watson edition. We still have Forbes, like you mentioned. Like I said, we got Quentin Lake. So I think McDuffie and then Watson onto that with Forbes, with Quentin Lake, with our safeties, because we still got Cam Kinchins and we re signed Cam Curl, which is another big free agency move. And we still have Jalen McCullough. Shout out to Tank. He's an underrated player. And I just really love this secondary. It was maybe perhaps a weakness in the playoffs last season. And now I would be shocked to see a secondary on paper that's better than ours. Maybe the Eagles, but even Reed Blankenship is a free agent if you're high on him. So, as it stands right now, I believe the Rams have arguably the best secondary in the league, which was a position of weakness last year. So I'm feeling really high on the Rams right now going into the offseason. And I think the sky's the limit for this team. And I just have this gut feeling, knowing Les Snead and just how aggressive we've been, we're going to make some big moves over the next few weeks, whether it's in the draft, whether it's after the draft. There's some moves to be made, and I think they'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have put it much better than that. I like the part about Jalen Ramsey that you mentioned, and I do want to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying. Jalen Ramsey, you were saying you think is maybe one of the best cornerbacks of all time. You think that might be a hot take. I don't even think it's a hot take. I think he is one of the best cornerbacks of all time in his prime. 2020, Jalen Ramsey on the LA Rams is the best cornerback I've ever seen. And
Wow.
I think that season was better than most of Darrell Reeves' career. I know it's only 1 year, but I think it was better than Darrell Reeves. I saw a little bit of him when I was younger. I really do it, and that shows how important it is to have a star player like that. Even when we won the Super Bowl, we had Ramsey, and people were, the casual fans were gonna say, "Oh, well, Jalen Ramsey didn't have a good Super Bowl," but we know that 75-yard touchdown that he gave up was not his fault. That was clearly
Sure.
offensive PI that was not called. But my point is, even when we won the Super Bowl, we had Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Aaron Donald, three future Hall of Famers on that defense, and a whole lot of other talent as well. Leonard Floyd, Ernest Jones, just to name a few. But you need to have at least one star on your defense to have an elite defense. Look at Seattle. They have so many stars on that defense. And speaking of stars, I know he's probably not the best player on their defense, but Josh Jobe has re-signed with the Seahawks. Kobe Bryant left for the Bears, so that's another thing we can get into. But you have to have a star, especially in your secondary, which is why the Rams had Ramsey and they were able to win that Super Bowl in Super Bowl 56. And this is why they're going to win Super Bowl 61 with Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson as well. And like you said, there are still moves to be made. You cannot sit back now and stay satisfied because the last 2 years have been the most, besides Super Bowl 53, I think besides any Super Bowl loss the Rams have had, these last two postseason losses are the most heartbreaking losses in Rams history. I truly believe that, at least in Los Angeles Rams history. Maybe some playoff losses in St. Louis may have topped it. Maybe the one in OT against Carolina. I don't know, but to me, when it's two teams that you don't like, Philly and Seattle, and you're the only team that gives them a game 2 years in a row, my blood's starting to boil just thinking about it. But
Yeah, that Eagles loss cut me deeper than any loss we've ever had, for sure. That was the worst one for me, even worse than losing to the Patriots either time.
and think about how I felt surrounded by Eagles fans here in Philly territory. So being the only Rams fan around here besides my father, so that was that was definitely not the most fun experience. I still hear about the snow game in Philly to this day, so that's no fun. But we need that star player on our defense, like you were saying, like I was saying, which is why we weren't able to get it done the last 2 years. When it mattered, the defense wasn't there, and you know, I'm gonna give the defense a little bit of credit. I'm gonna cut them a little bit of slack. The game against Seattle, the muff punt by Xavier Smith, no hate to him, but obviously that's a play you should have made, and then it led to 7 points for Seattle. So Seattle really earned 24 points, not 31 in that game. So the defense wasn't terrible, but they didn't come up with too many big stops, I feel like. And when you have the best offense in football, which the Rams do have, you need to have a better defense. If you have the best offense in football and don't win the Super Bowl, clearly what's the problem? Defense.
Yep.
Clearly. So, I mean, we need that star player we got in Trent McDuffie. I couldn't be happier with this trade. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson as well. I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with Jalen Watson. I know who he is, but I'm not too familiar with him. I know he signed into a 3-year deal, but like we said, we had a secondary problem, and now we don't. Just like
Right.
that in the span of a week. And I think as much as I still have mixed feelings about Les Snead after releasing my boy Cooper Cup, I got to admit he's a great GM. He's great at his job. He knows what he's doing. As much as I don't, I'm not a huge fan of him. Like I said, after he released my favorite player, but he's good at his job. I'm not going to be stupid and act like he's not. So, but you said we have to make more moves, right?
Right.
What moves do the Rams need to make, in your opinion, to become a better team and become closer to reaching that Super Bowl 61 title?
Well, some moves that I'd like to see them make. I think we need to address the backup quarterback position. I haven't 100% given up on Stetson Bennett, but he's unproven, and we need a theoretical guy who could fill in for weeks. Worst case scenario, knock on wood, if Safford did get hurt, I want to have someone that I'm confident in. And I've been outspoken and really high on Kyler Murray. I
Mm,
think Kyler Murray would be a great fit here. I would try to sign him to a multi-year deal too. I think he could not only be great backup quarterback, maybe the best backup quarterback in the league, but I think Kyler Murray could be a bridge quarterback, whether it's he's good enough to be the heir to Matthew Stafford, which, I think he's capable of being. I'm not the biggest Kyler Murray fan, but I think the skill is there. I think it's just putting together a couple other things and maybe getting over some of his size problems. But I think he can be a starter in this league and a successful one at that because he's proven that in this league and it's not easy. And he wasn't on the best organization at all. And I would love to see that for his career. Take a page out of Sam Darnold's playbook, make the smart decision, come to the Rams, and back up Matthew Stafford this year and get your chance next year. Come
yeah.
start for a year or two with McVay. You got Cliff Kingsbury back. Besides that, I would love for us to add another wide receiver. I know we've had some big ones off the board. Jalen Naylor went to the Raiders. Mike Evans, we'll talk about later, went to the 49ers, which is scary. I'm really high on Rashid Shaheed. I know a bunch of other Rams fans are. Shout out Roan. He said he was really
Mm,
high on Rashid Shaheed as well. And I'm really interested to see what we do at that position because we have pick 13, and I know most people are just going to be like, let's take Malachi Lemon, but I'm almost in the thought process now where I kind of want to trade pick 13. Just
mm,
try to get another star. Let's be aggressive as possible. I know Jake Ellenbogen, one of our favorite Rams YouTubers, mentioned we need to add a fifth tight end because a lot of our tight ends, we play a lot of tight ends and they play a lot of sparing time. It's a shifting group play after play. So there's a lot of moves I want to make offensively: backup quarterback, third wide receiver, maybe another tight end. And let's see what we do with that draft pick. But I'm really really curious because I just have a feeling that we're going to make a big splash. I don't know what position it will be, but I think it's coming, and I think it'll come whether it's today, whether it's in a week, or whether it is on the draft.
I hate to put you on the spot, but if we're gonna trade the 13th pick for someone, if you're Les Snead, who do you want that someone to be? Do you
Yeah,
have any
I
specifics?
mean, I would have loved it to be Michael Pittman, a player
Mm,
like that. I saw this guy on Instagram, and I don't know if Arizona would trade within the division, and this might be a reach, but I saw someone mentioning they don't love Marvin Harrison. I would give up our pick 13 for Marvin Harrison, maybe even a little bit extra, just to make that trade work. I think that would fill a future position. I think it'd be a good fit because. I mean, while he is an outside receiver and Puka can play anywhere, you can throw Puka in the slot, and that's maybe the best slot wide receiver in the league, right there with JSN. So Marvin Harrison can play the outside. I think he'd be a great fit. I still have a high opinion on him. So if we don't get Rashid Shaheed or go that route, I'd be open to trading pick 13 for a player like Marvin Harrison or, just another wide receiver who I feel really strongly about. I don't know who's all available, but just, someone like that. I like Marvin Harrison in theory. They talked about Chris Olave last year, maybe being a guy who got moved. Garrett Wilson, Ohio State guys. So Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, any one of them. I would take any one of all three Ohio State guys, actually. Crazy enough. I take any one of those guys for our pick 13. And honestly, I think all three of those guys might end up being better than Malachi Lemon. I think
Mm.
they're just three really talented guys. I'm not saying I don't like him or don't love that pick at pick 13. I just am more ready for a right now decision. I don't think we necessarily need to use this first round pick when we can go for a quote unquote superstar like Garrett Wilson or Marvin Harrison or, whoever it is.
Yeah. I feel like Marvin Harrison, like you said, is probably a reach, but I don't think it's impossible, but I just don't think the Cardinals are going to trade their wide receiver one in the division. And I feel like we need to give up more than just the 13th pick for him. Just because I feel like Arizona's probably, well, not probably, they are really high on Marvin Harrison Jr. I know he's a great player because I'm a Michigan fan and I saw him light up our defense a few times and then he lit up the Rams defense a few times too. So I've seen enough of Marvin Harrison Jr. to know he's a good player. But another Buckeye that I know a bit too much about, Caleb Downs. That is who I want the Rams to get in the draft. I know he's a safety. I know we just re-signed Cam Curl. I know we have safeties. That's fine. We have Quentin Lake. I want Caleb Downs. He is going to be a superstar. I've said this on this podcast before. I'm a Michigan fan. I don't like to give any Buckeyes any credit. Trust me. But he is going to be, I'm going to say it right now. He's going to be the best player that comes out of this draft in a few years.
Wow.
We're gonna look back on it and we're gonna say, yeah, Caleb Downs is the best player from the 2026 NFL class. He is. He's going to be. And he look, if someone finds this episode in like 2030 or something, and I'm saying this and Caleb Downs ends up falling to late first and he stinks in the NFL, then my bad. But I'm really high on this guy, and I think we definitely have to trade up to get him because I
Yeah.
don't think he falls behind Dallas, who has the pick before us. Uh,
Well, he has that knee problem going on, right?
is that does he? Is that a
Yeah,
concern?
it came out recently, I believe, that he's suffering from like somewhat of a degenerative knee type thing. Kind of similar, it reminded me of Todd Gurley, but
Hmm.
I know he's still definitely projected to be a top 10 pick. So I agree with you when you say we'd probably have to trade up for him.
That reminds me of Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan last year,
Mm,
who fell to the second round. I wanted the Rams to get him late in the first so badly. I didn't think it was going to be possible because he was projected to be a top 15, top 20 pick. He fell to us. We trade our pick to Atlanta. He falls to us in the second round. We pass on him, and he goes to Arizona the pick after. And then guess what? We don't have a number one corner the whole season. So going back on it, no offense to Terrence Ferguson, I like the kid, but I think I'd still go back and draft Will Johnson. I think I
yeah.
would. And maybe that's me being a little bit biased as a Michigan Wolverines fan, but I know he's a great player. I know he's going to develop really well, especially if he were to develop in this Rams organization, how well this organization has been run the last 10 years. I know he developed really well in it. Maybe he wouldn't be the shutdown corner like prime Jalen Ramsey was, but that's asking for a lot. So
Right.
I think he would have been the best corner on the team in a few years if we were to draft him, but that ship has sailed. He's a Cardinal, but now we have our corners. So I don't. What I thought we were going to do was, trade for McDuffie. I was like, okay, we trade for McDuffie. Now we're going to draft a corner at 13. Those are going to be our top two corners. Maybe we re-sign Witherspoon, and boom, we got three good corners right there, and our secondary is fixed just like that. Then we go out and sign Jalen Watson. Now I'm thinking we don't draft a corner because I think Akella Witherspoon is going to be back. Um, Maybe we go to the route of drafting a receiver like Lemon. I don't love drafting a receiver when you already have Puka and Devontae Adams. I wouldn't mind taking a receiver at pick 29, but we don't have that pick anymore. This is the 13th overall pick. It's a top 15 pick we're talking about. I don't think you use a top 15 pick on a wide receiver 3. I don't. I don't I don't love the idea. I'm not saying like if the Rams draft Makai Lemon that, I'm going to be pissed, but I think there's choices that make more sense if that makes any sense. Um, are there any other specific names that you want the Rams to go after for pick 13?
Oh man. I think in theory, it's always what I want the Rams to do, and they always end up, I swear, doing the exact opposite. One thing I know that I've heard from many, many Rams people, we're high on Ty Simpson.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't be preferred to pick him, but like you mentioned earlier, I really do trust Les Snead. I'm very critical of general managers across sports, but Les Snead is one guy I trust him. Man, he does business well. He knows ball. Him and Sean McVay run a great organization. I wouldn't be surprised, in theory, if we do another classic Rams like last year and trade down once again with one of these teams trying to get whomever it may be and pick Ty Simpson. I could see that totally happening for sure. And I'm not, an Alabama expert. I do have some experience watching him play. I know he's got some skill for sure. I think he's a bit of a project. I don't think he's as solid as Fernando Mendoza, for example, who I'm really high on. I just think Simpson's gonna need a little more time to grow. But maybe he could do it here. So if we don't end up with Kyler Murray, I could totally see the Rams doing that trade down theoretically and picking Ty Simpson wherever that may be.
Now, would you rather the Rams draft Ty Simpson or would you rather them sign Kyler Murray? Because I know you talked about that too.
Honestly, I think I would rather them sign Kyler Murray and use
Wow.
that draft asset elsewhere. Because I think if you sign Kyler Murray, I think that gives you more options. Whereas if you do use a theoretical first or high second round pick on Ty Simpson, I think you're somewhat handcuffed to that player in that situation, and now it's up to McVay to know, okay, I got to develop this guy and get him where I need him to be to inevitably replace our aging MVP. So I think Kyler Murray would just be a better okay, if he doesn't work out, he can be a bridge, and you can draft or trade for or sign whoever you want. Whereas I think Simpson, you'd be kind of handcuffing yourself to that situation.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I would probably rather go in the direction of Ty Simpson only because I'm not too sold on Kyler Murray, but at the same time, it's not like he was in the best situation in Arizona. That's probably one of the worst situations currently in the NFL you could be in. No offense to the Cardinals, but I just think that's true. And I'm not even saying that because they're a division rival. I actually don't mind the Cardinals at all. I mean, we normally get 2 wins a year against them, so it's not like I have any problems or personal beef with the Arizona Cardinals like we do the Seahawks and Niners.
Right.
Um, but yeah, we also have a lot of free agents to go over that have signed today. We're recording this and uploading this as of March 9th. So Monday, March 9th. So legal tampering started today at 12 p.m. Eastern time, 12 my time, 11 your time. The 40 Winers signed Mike Evans. I believe it was 3 years, 60 mil.
Oh wow, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of money for a guy who has not
Yeah.
been healthy in a few years. And look, I'm not the kind of fan that's gonna ever make fun of a team or a player because they're injury prone. I think that sucks. It's not really something they can control. But to me, it doesn't make sense for the 49ers to do this. To sign a receiver like Mike Evans, like with his talent, great. You just lost Debo Samuel and Ayuk in the last 2 years. Fine. Go out and get your wide receiver one. But a guy that hasn't been healthy in the last few years, and you're already a team that's decimated with injuries, and it costed you your season last year because you were
Yeah.
decimated with these injuries. Why go out and sign another guy who has been a bit injury prone the last few years? Maybe you have a different thought process on it, but that was my first reaction.
Yeah, it was an aggressive move for sure. I was a little surprised. I will say maybe it's just them trying to quote unquote be all in. That would be my theory behind it. I know, like you said, I don't know what's going on with Ayuk exactly. I don't know that situation, but I do know Jawan Jennings and Demarcus Robinson are both free agents for them.
Mm,
So we'll see what they do because they need some more receivers. Right now, it's just really Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall, who both were suffering injuries last year. So they're really, really spare at that wide receiver spot right now. They're gonna have to make some more moves, whether it be bringing back one of those guys. But man, that contract is surprising for Mike Evans. I thought it would just be like a 1 year deal. He's an older player, same draft class as Devonte Adams, if memory suits me. So you know, Mike Evans was the guy I know a lot of Rams fans were interested in, but for that money, shoot, the 49ers can have him. I mean, he's a great player, maybe a future Hall of Famer, but yeah, no, I'm not trying to pay Mike Evans that. They're crazy. I'm not with John Lynch on that, and you're just asking for problems, paying an aging, injured wide receiver that kind of money.
To me, if I'm Mike Evans, unless I grew up like a diehard 49ers fan, which I don't know if he did, maybe he didn't, I have no idea. But unless that's the case, I wouldn't want to sign with a team like the 49ers because look at how their training staff has handled those injuries over the last few years. Not
For
well.
sure.
And if you're a guy who's been hurt the last few years, why would you want to go to a team that keeps having guys get hurt? Clearly, they're not doing something right. So, to me, that really wouldn't be a place that would be a good destination for me personally. Maybe that's me being a little biased because I hate the 49ers more than anybody, but I don't know. I don't get it. And I will say, I'm not too happy that the Niners got their new wide receiver one. But if they're going to pay him that much and he's getting up there and he's decimated with injuries here and there, as long as he doesn't have one of those, 1,000-yard seasons like he did for what, 10 or 11 years in a row, whatever it was, I think the Rams will be okay. But
Yeah.
I do want to say, as much as I hate the 49ers, I don't think people are giving them enough credit because they were decimated with injuries last year and they still made it to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs in the NFC. If they are healthy, do they go further? Do we see them in the NFC Championship? Do we see them in the Super Bowl? Who knows? I mean, what are your
Maybe.
thoughts on that?
In terms of last year, I don't think they, even if they were healthy, that they would have beaten us or Seattle. I
Mm,
I just think last year and really the year before too. I just think the Rams were right up there with the Super Bowl champs. I don't think anyone else was kind of quite on their level. I will say this though, the 49ers are going to have a really good team going into next year. I think if they stay healthy, major if, and I know Kittle's still kind of a question mark, and Fred Warner's kind of nursing back his injury slightly, but they have a really good team going into next year, and they have an amazing head coach. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'm of course taking the Rams to win that division next year, but I could see San Francisco getting second and making the playoffs. And we talked about it earlier. The Seahawks missing Boye Mafe to the Bengals, Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, now to the Chiefs,
yeah.
Kobe Bryant to the Bears, a big move. They did keep Josh Jobs, so that's good for them. But we know they got a couple more pieces available, like Rashid Shaheed and, just a couple other guys, too. So we'll see where the Seahawks are next year. They're also going to have a first place schedule, and they're gonna have a hard time, in my opinion, reaching that same level of dominance last year because they went 14-3, right, and then won the Super Bowl. So
Mm.
they dominated the season last year. Now, are they going to be a good team next year? Yes. Are they going to dominate the league and go 17-3 next year? No chance. There's no chance of that happening.
If you had to predict the standings right now for the NFC West next year, would you say it's Rams, Niners, Seahawks, Cardinals, or would you change that up?
It's close right now. I think 49ers and Seahawks are pretty close. I do think I will say I just got this gut feeling the 49ers are going to be strong next year, man,
I agree.
honestly.
I
I
agree.
think they're going to be the second team in the division. I think they might even be the 5 seed, honestly, cuz
Wow.
I don't even know. Who knows with the NFC? It's always crazy out there, and there's a lot of moves left to be made. So I could totally foresee us winning the division and the 49ers being the 5 seed. Maybe the Seahawks would be the 6 seed or 7 seed. I think that's totally possible. But like I said, they play that first place schedule, so they're gonna have to play Carolina, who was a tough team last year. They're gonna have to play the Bears, who I think are going to be really good next year. They're going to have to play the Eagles. We play the NFC East next year, which is a really tough division. And they're going to have to play the Rams and 49ers twice. So if you're
Yeah,
not careful, that can be two, three, four losses. We know that.
it's true.
So,
We know
the
that
Seahawks are
firsthand.
up against it. They're the world champs, but they're going to have to come right back next year and prove it. We know that firsthand after we won the Super Bowl. We only won 5 games. And I'm not saying the Seahawks are going to win 5 games, but everyone is gunning for you. And I think everyone is extra gunning for them because they think that Seattle is vulnerable a little bit. After all these losses, I think they will be somewhat vulnerable. So we'll see.
Yeah, another thing that you mentioned right there was that Kenneth Walker is no longer a Seahawk. That is huge. And it's funny
Huge.
because I was checking right before we started recording this, I was actually checking Twitter or X, whatever the heck you want to call it. And I saw someone post a meme like the Chiefs bringing all the money to Kenneth Walker's house to sign him. It was a bunch of like Chiefs training staff guys holding these big duffel bags with Chiefs logos on them, and they were like walking down the tunnel in the back with all the equipment in it. But obviously, the joke was that they were all filled with money, and I was like, oh, that's funny, whatever. I didn't think they actually signed him. And then we hopped on here, and you were like, "Yeah, man, I can't believe Kenneth Walker signed with the Chiefs." I was like, "What? Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy." I didn't think there was any way he was leaving after he won Super Bowl MVP with that franchise. I didn't think there was any chance Kenneth Walker was going to be wearing any other uniform rather than a Seattle Seahawks uniform, and I'm shocked. Obviously, the Rams are not a team that Kenneth Walker would fit on, so it's not like we ever thought that there was going to be a chance we get him. But Kenneth Walker is a great player, and I said the same thing about I'm going to say the same thing I said about Marvin Harrison Jr. As a Michigan fan, I saw Kenneth Walker, firsthand against the Wolverines. He scored 5 touchdowns against the Wolverines. Fun fact, that was J.J. McCarthy's only loss as a Michigan Wolverine as a starting quarterback.
Wow. Interesting.
That was like 5 years ago. And then, of course, he was pretty darn good against the Rams this year. We played him
Yeah.
3 times. They beat us twice. And obviously, he was pretty darn good in the Super Bowl because he won Super Bowl MVP. So trust me, if anybody knows how good Kenneth Walker is, that isn't a Seahawks fan, it's me. So this is a great pickup for the Chiefs. What do we think the Chiefs' thought process is right here? Because they're getting rid of guys like Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, but they re-sign Travis Kelce and they go out and get Kenneth Walker. And we don't know. I don't think we know if Mahomes is going to be ready yet by week 1. But
Yeah, I'm not sure Mahomes' situation, honestly. I
yeah,
know he suffered that big injury last year. I just don't think he's going to be quite ready by week 1, but
mhm,
I could be wrong. I mean, I will say this about Mahomes. Highest level of respect for him, and he is so tough. He has played through injuries throughout his career. Very, very much so. And he's played through a lot of injuries because they've been contending basically his whole career. So it's always been on him. And he's
right.
for once in his career gotten a little bit of a break when he was hurt last year. And I know he's going to be rushing back. I think Kelsey being back, as well as, them signing Kenneth Walker. They
Yeah.
have lost some pieces on defense, but it was just a cap situation. They didn't want Trent McDuffie to go. I actually saw Mahomes tweet out some like crying emojis that Trent McDuffie was leaving that I
Mm.
got a little bit of a kick out of. But
Hmm.
we know the Chiefs. They're deadly. They're going to have a good group going into next year. And I trust their management too. I think Andy Reid's one of the best coaches of all time. So, if Mahomes is good to go, you got Mahomes, Kenneth Walker, Travis Kelsey, their receivers. I know they don't technically have Hollywood Brown back, but they got Rasheed Rice and, just a couple other guys. They got a great group over there in Kansas City. So as long as Mahomes is under center, they're going to be good to go.
You think they bounce back and they're able to get back to their Super Bowl contending hopes that they think they'll be able to do?
I think it's possible. I think the AFC is pretty wide open right now. I think the Chargers are going to be good. I
Mhm.
think the Patriots are going to be good again next year. Ravens, we got to, get into that a little bit with them adding Max Crosby. That's a huge piece.
Yeah,
He's arguably like one of the best defensive players in the league, in my opinion. I'm not going to say he's quite as good as Miles Garrett, but I think on his best day, he's that level of player. No exaggeration. I think he's just that good. So you have him with a two-time MVP over on offense, not to mention Mark Andrews and Derrick Henry. So kind of an older team, but a deadly team. So definitely a team I wouldn't overlook. But we'll see. In playoff time, I'm not taking anyone over Patrick Mahomes except maybe Matthew Stafford. So
yeah. I'm gonna be honest about Max Crosby. I am pissed he's not a Los Angeles Ram, and I hate to sound spoiled because we just got Trent McDuffie. We have the MVP at quarterback. We got to see Aaron Donald for a decade. You're repping him with your jersey today, so that's pretty cool.
yes,
I'm pissed we didn't get him. I thought he would have been perfect with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. Maybe we would have had to given up Braden Fisk or a guy like Byron Young in the deal. I don't know, but if they got just two firsts for him, I feel like we could have given up our two firsts for this year for Max Crosby and then worked something else out for Trent McDuffie. I feel like there's still a way we could have gotten both of them because even if you give up a first and a little bit more for McDuffie, you could still give up our first this year and our first next year for Crosby.
right,
I would have been fine with that.
right.
I mean, we know how Les Snead feels about his draft picks. The old saying, "F them picks." The T-shirt he wore to the Super Bowl parade a few years ago. Um, but I really, really am disappointed that we missed out on him. I'm not going to sit here and act like the season's over because we didn't get him. But I think this really, really would have put the Rams over the top as like a big Super Bowl favorite. I have the Rams as my Super Bowl favorite right now, but I think this would have put them even higher if they got Max Crosby. Obviously, I'm disappointed we didn't get him. We talked about it a few episodes ago how he might be a future Ram. Now he's a Raven. And I just feel like I don't know, this isn't a shot at Jared Verse. I love Jared Verse, but we need someone like Max Crosby on the defensive line, like how we had for Aaron Donald. And I'm going to use the same example I used for Jalen Ramsey before. We needed a star in the secondary to win a Super Bowl. Now we have Trent McDuffie. I'm going to use the same thing. We need a star on the defensive line. We had Aaron Donald. We could have had Max Crosby, but we missed out on him. So, if you're Jared Verse and you're seeing this, and there's no Max Crosby, this is your sign to say, "Hey, I'm the guy now. I'm the guy. I'm entering my third year. I'm the guy on the defensive line that needs to step up. Besides the secondary, I'm the best player on the defense. Probably the best player on the defense, anyways. Maybe besides Trent McDuffie, but Jared Verse, this is your moment. We don't have Max Crosby. Obviously, we know you're Aaron Donald's replacement pretty much. This is your chance to really break out this season, and if you do, I think this team will be the best offense in the league and arguably the best defense in the league too. If Jared Verse can step up and Trent McDuffie just plays how Trent McDuffie is supposed to play, this is a Super Bowl winning team. And I think the biggest part about it is Jared Verse. Not to put him on the spot, but I feel like so many times this past year I've been calling his name. I'm like, all right, this is where Aaron Donald would make a big play. Jared Verse, we need you. And it just didn't happen. So now, Jared Verse, we're going to need you to lock in. 2026 is Jared Verse's year where he breaks out. That's my prediction.
I like it. Yeah. Shout out Jared Verse. I think here's what I'll say on the Max Crosby situation. I
Mhm.
think we could have definitely, like you said, traded pick 13 and our first round pick next year and made that happen. I think we were involved in that. I think the asking price just didn't quite fit what we wanted to do.
Mhm.
Um, I also think that we're really high on Byron Young. I think we're high on Jared Verse, like you said. I think Jared Verse and Byron Young still have a little room to grow. I do agree with you. Pressure is on Jared Verse because he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's the name. If you ask a casual fan, who's the best defensive player on the Rams? Yeah, they're probably going to say Jared Verse. And I think a lot of it too is honestly your boy Josiah Stewart from Michigan. I
Yeah,
think he has a really high ceiling. I think he has a bright future in this league. And I think they feel really good about those three kind of rotating in. I know we're trying to keep Keir Thomas too, so I feel good about the edge rusher position. I 100% agree with you though. They have to be better as a group, and that starts with Jared Verse. He's your team leader. He's supposed to be better than Trent McDuffie. He's supposed to be the best player on your team
yeah,
theoretically. So I mean, we paid the first round pick for him. I think he's a great player. I gave him Rammy Defensive Player of the Year, but I need to see him take that next step. He was at 7.5 sacks this year. And sacks it doesn't tell the whole story, but he left a little meat on the bone, as they say. And I think he could definitely have a 10, 12, 15 plus sack year if he just really puts it together and finishes on some of these plays.
I agree. We're gonna need him to step up, and when, not if, when he does, the Rams will be Super Bowl favorites. For what it feels like, if it really is the second year in a row, they'll be Super Bowl favorites because there was a good part of this past season where the Rams were Super Bowl favorites, and unfortunately, they just weren't able to get it done. And it's because their defense went from being one of the scariest defenses in the league, if not the scariest defense in the league in the first half of the year, to being very vulnerable in the second half of the year. And other offenses just taking advantage of it, like Seattle. So I'm glad we made these moves with McDuffie and with Jalen Watson. I want them to make more. Do we know of any other big moves going around in day one of free agency, Jordan?
Yeah, we talked about Rayshawn Gary before we started recording to Dallas a little bit. That's kind of a big move. I do think the Cowboys, that's a very competitive division. I think all of those teams, it's tough to predict. I do think the Redskins are gonna still kind of struggle a little bit. I just don't think their roster is
Mm.
quite good enough to compete with the other teams in the division. But the Giants, I know you're out there in Jersey. I'm a little high on the Giants. They've
Yeah,
got a lot of talent on that team, and
good
while I
coaching now.
don't know if they'll win like 10, 11, 12 games, yeah, they got Harbaugh now. So, and I like Jackson Dart. I like Cam Scadaboo. So if they can stay healthy, that's a good team. So Dallas adding Rayshawn Gary, they got Quentin Williams, they got Odigi Zua, they got a good little group out there. I'm pretty familiar with the Cowboys team, so we'll see. I don't know if they have Jadeveon Clowney coming back, but he played some good football for them last year. But we'll see. Rayshawn Gary was kind of a big pickup with them. Him with Quentin
Yeah.
Williams.
Oh yeah.
If they're on the same side of the field, that's a tough defensive line to just stop right there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the Cowboys are headed in the right direction. I think Dak Prescott is a top 7 quarterback in the league. I think we went over this when we did our top 10 for offense. If you guys want to go back a few episodes ago, I think it was episode 18, something like that, where we ranked the best offensive players in the league. We did our top 10 for each skill position and offensive lineman as well, of course. Uh, I had Dak Prescott in my top 10. I think he's a top 7 quarterback. This past season, I think he played like a top 5 quarterback. I think he could have been, if the Cowboys were a better team and got more recognition, I think he would have been an MVP finalist. He had a phenomenal season considering the Cowboys are not a good team. They're not. They have a good receiving core. I think they have a really good quarterback. Their offensive line took a hit when they lost Zach Martin. Their defense was terrible this past season.
Right.
They one of the worst defenses in the league. I have a friend who's a Cowboys fan and he tells me about it all the time. And I 100% agree with him when he says that Dak might be a top 5 quarterback in football. I think I'm really high on Dak Prescott. Now, I'm going to say a hot take that's going to sound stupid, but hear me out. If Stafford retires at the end of this year, I wouldn't mind going and trading a few picks for Dak Prescott like we did for Stafford a few years ago. If the Cowboys really aren't in a winning situation, which I think they will be. But if not, if this fails for the Cowboys in the next year or two, go out and trade for Dak Prescott. I would love to have him in Los Angeles after Matt Stafford. I know it's not too realistic because I'm sure he loves being a Cowboy. That's a great franchise over there in Dallas, but I would love to have Dak Prescott. I think he's a great player, and I think the Cowboys, like I said, are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I like it. I do like Schottenheimer, their coach.
Mhm.
I like their wide receivers. I think I think they're gonna try to figure it out on defense. They got a lot of holes. I know they signed a safety from the Cardinals. I'm forgetting his name, but I know their safeties last year were horrible. I can speak from watching the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Um, so it's
Yeah.
got to be an upgrade there. They need some cornerbacks to get that group going. But football is always better when the Dallas Cowboys are playing good, and we play them next year in Los Angeles, so I think that'll be a really interesting matchup and a really good game.
Yeah. By the way, we have live breaking news, another big free agent signing right here on the Ramblin' Rams podcast. Not Rams related, unfortunately, but Tua Tagovailoa is signing with the Atlanta Falcons, which is very interesting because there's only so many lefty quarterbacks in the league. They
Right.
already had one with Penix, and now they're replacing him with Tua. So the Penix era, Kirk Cousins, all that might be over in Atlanta. And now we see Tua go in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not too high on Tua or Michael Penix. If you're a left-handed quarterback and your name's not Michael Vick, it's hard to make it work in the NFL, and we've seen that historically. There's been a few left-handed greats over the year. Boomer Esiason, one of my personal favorites. Tim
Hmm.
Tebow never
Love
quite
Tim
got his
Tebow.
fair shot in the league, but we know Tim Tebow had his accuracy problems and. Tua, ironically, has been somewhat of a Rams killer. I feel like we always lose to
Yeah,
Tua and the Dolphins.
I think we're 0-2 against him in his career.
Yeah, we have a rough record historically against the Dolphins for whatever reason that may be, but yeah, it's interesting. I did hear a rumor this morning that Tua was going to go to Atlanta, that they were interested in him because he's left-handed with Michael Penix. So in theory, that's somewhat good coaching. They got Kevin Stefanski, and they've got some good weapons. I'm really high on Drake London. I don't think I had him in my top 10 wide receivers list, but he's a top 10 caliber wide receiver
Mhm.
in the league for sure. Another guy like, shoot, I don't know if the Falcons would ever trade him, but I would trade for Drake London in a
Oh yeah,
heartbeat.
oh yeah.
So, it's interesting. I think Tua is better than Michael Penix for sure. I think that's fair
Mhm.
to say. So, we'll see what he can do there. Shout out Tua. I love Hawaii, so maybe he can get it figured out a little bit back in Atlanta, but I'm not loving that move for them. Just overall, it's not a great team, and it's not a great fit. I don't think, honestly,
Mhm.
for Tua. I think it's just who was giving him the chance to compete for a starting job, and all credit to him. Go prove me wrong and have a great year. He's got the talent around him, so who knows? Tua's played some good football in this league. I just personally am glad he's not a Stafford, theoretical replacement.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that was ever going to be a possible fit with the LA Rams. I don't see that happening. I agree. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff happened today. We went over a lot of big moves, but there's going to be even more next week. So, that'll wrap it up for episode 21 of the Ramblin' Rams podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have an episode every Monday here on either YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify, wherever you're watching or listening to this. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys next week.